Welcome to WCEG Network, the new WCEG Network. We are WCEG We are your worldwide community empowerment group. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. My name is Herman Anderson, and my co-host is Anthony Aikens. We would do introductions in a minute. Let me give you ways that you can join the conversation today. We have several ways. Number one, by going to WCEGtalkradio.com on your smart device, computer, phone, iPad. You can go to WCEG Radio Network. You can go to lyvradio.com/WCEG. We are live on Facebook, so please follow us on Facebook. We are on YouTube. Subscription is free, so you can follow us that way. And as also we have, we're on Twitter and we're on Instagram. Our Instagram account is at WCEG underscore talk underscore radio. And my Twitter account is Vets, VETS, the number two, Day, DAY underscore Herman. And before we get started, the conversation we're having today, the topics we will discuss, those are the opinion of the show host and the guests, not WCEG Network. And we are a nonprofit organization, and we will give you more as we go along on how you can donate to the program, and to the organization. Anthony Aikens,
I'll tell you what, Herman, that was a lot of good information, and I want to say it's always good to see you guys. Today I'm remote. You can see that beautiful background behind me. It's all imagery, but it's good to be with you and to have a outstanding guest on. And every week we try to get together and get good information to give to veterans and our listeners around the world. So it was always good to see you, Herman.
Great. And I'm going, Mr. Johnnie Crawford is our guest today, and I'm going to read because what he's a photographer. He's also a storyteller, and he has a lot of experience. So I'm going to read most of his biography, and we'll go from there. Johnnie Crawford is a visual storyteller and educator from Jackson, Georgia, who has documented the human spirit in 45 states in 4 continents for 37 years. He is the founder of Vietnam Black Soldiers Project. The mission of the project is to educate present and future Americans about the Black soldier in their community that served, suffered, and died fighting the civil rights for people in South Vietnam, even though they did not have the same right themselves. And just to stop, this month is Vietnam Era Veterans Month, and March the 29th is Vietnam Veterans Day that we will be celebrating. So this comes at a good time. The Vietnam Black Soldier Portrait Project goal is to produce portraits of Black veterans from 18 states, Washington, D.C. Those portraits will represent a visual history to the 275,000 Black men and women who served in combat and supply services and all branches of the services. And just to read you some of Mr. Carver's background, he has worked for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution for 28 years. During the tenure, he photographed the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing, China, 1996 Olympics in Georgia. He has worked for NASCAR, and Johnnie education wise has a master's in photojournalism from Ohio State University, a BA degree in psychology and public relations from Morehouse. He taught photography at Grady High School, University of Georgia, Georgia State, and Mercer University. Johnnie is married to Jacqueline Crawford and has adult sons. Mr. Johnnie Crawford, how are you?
Doing well. I graduated from Ohio University, so I want to make sure because those people who watch know me from Ohio University. But okay. I'm so happy to be here. You know, one of the things I think, you know, life is a series of stories. Okay, everything that you remember about anything is a series of stories, and those series of stories are really based on a series of memories. So when you look at history is based on a series of stories, but it's from the perspective of the person who's telling the story.
Correct.
And that's one of the most important things you have to realize about history.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody has a way of seeing things.
Correct.
And a lot of times people see things, and when I take portraits of people, one of the things I have to get out in the open is that I am going to see you a certain way. You see yourself a certain way, and somewhere in the middle, we try to find a meeting place. And when I first, after I left the paper in 2013, I had to find projects that allowed me to tell stories. And one of the projects that I came upon was Black Vietnam veterans. And believe it or not, my life, the way I got to where I am, were a series of stories that put me on that path. You know, we talk about why people do things. You know, why is the biggest question that you can ever try to solve? You know, why this? Well, I became a photographer, not necessarily because I wanted to be. I became a photographer because my grandfather, Henry Crawford, and my grandmother, Mamie Crawford, took me and my sister in after both my parents died. And so my grandfather was a world to me. And after he had, like many older Black men raised in middle Georgia, he was a farmer / worked in the cotton mill. And so he looked forward to the day he retired. And when he retired, he got his picture in the newspaper. He was so happy. And so I come home from school and I see that picture, and the only thing you see was a block, 2 eyes and a row of white teeth. I was furious. So I jumped on my bicycle and ran up to the newspaper and asked the man, why did my grandfather look so bad and the white men on the other page look better? Now, he didn't look good at either, but at least you could tell he was a man. And so when the editor had me introduce me to the photographer, she showed me what she did, how to get the photograph that way. I realized at that particular moment, it was a lack of knowledge in photography, the reason my grandfather looked that way. It wasn't racism. It ended up being a racist thought from my perspective, but from the young girl's perspective, she just didn't know what she was doing. One of the things my grandfather taught me, and I was talking about this earlier, he used to ask me a question: what are the 2 things you need to have a long, successful life? And those things were oxygen and knowledge. Knowledge is the key. And so when I think about looking at anything, I want to try to learn as much as possible I possibly can about it. And I've always been a big follower of history. I love history. And so as I began to look at things to do portraits on, Black men in Vietnam kept coming in my head. One of the reasons was that when I was an intern, when I was going through Morehouse College, I worked at the VA Medical Center. And that was during the time in 1983 when these soldiers were coming back home, dealing with Agent Orange and all these other problems. And I got a chance to not only hear their stories, but I ended up photographing some of those men. So Fast forward 30 years later, I'm sitting in my church at Cascade United Methodist Church at a United Methodist men breakfast. And Johnnie Miller, who's one of the men I've been knowing in church forever, he gets up and tells his story about being in Vietnam. He talks about, first of all, leaving out of his county for the first time as a young man. We're talking about in the 1960s, when you couldn't vote, you couldn't go to the bathroom, but yet you can go fight for a country to give freedoms to people that you don't have yourself. And he talks about going through the bush and getting hit in the leg with getting shot in the leg, then he gets shot in the lung, and then on top of that, he gets bombed by an American plane, and he makes it out. Then I hear other stories. So those series of stories are the reason that I got interested in doing the thing on Vietnam. I'm going to share my screen and show you some of the things that we've done. Do you see Mr. Anderson?
No, we don't see anything.
Okay.
No, not yet.
Okay.
But while you're doing that, I think it's very complimentary that you had enough vision to capture the images of those individuals that served our nation. So I'm looking forward to seeing them, like our guests are too.
Okay, let's see. Can you see them now? Let's see.
Let's see, they'll pop up in a second here.
Can you see them?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, quite a few. Yes, quite
Okay,
a few.
I'm gonna get them down for you. Give me a second here. Okay. The project that's up now, if you go to the Atlanta Beltline at Pond City Market, what you'll see is it's a banner. And it's a banner of it's 118 feet. And the banner is basically Vietnam soldiers, some majority who were in combat, some were in the Vietnam era, from the state of Georgia. This is how it looks if you're jogging past it. It's very important. And I was going back and saying that, history is a series of moments. No matter what you remember about your grandmother or your school, it's always a series of moments. And those moments are either good or they're bad. If they're good, it does something to you. If they're bad, they do something to you. But they all join those series of moments, then they can glide into a series of stories. And that's what we remember. We always remember stories and moments. So part of the reason for shooting the portraits is for me to get an understanding about what these gentlemen saw in the time of Vietnam. Now, this is Johnnie Miller. This is Johnnie Miller. Johnnie Miller is the one I was telling you about that was shot in the leg and shot in the arm, shot in the leg and shot in the lung, and was a victim of friendly fire. This man here is very interesting. And one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to photograph a number of veterans that were injured. But when I started doing the project, it was very difficult to find veterans. First of all, one of the most interesting things about when people see the portraits on the Beltline, there are 33 portraits. And people say, well, that must have been easy. Actually, it wasn't. The thing that I was talking about moments and memories, some of those memories were so bad that people locked the door in their head. They didn't want to talk about it. Matter of fact, I got more rejections than I got people who agreed to do it. One guy told me, he says, you know what? He said, I understand what you're doing. And he said, I really appreciate it. He said, but that's one of those series of situations that I just cannot unlock in my head. He said, sometimes you have these memories and you just have to keep the door locked. And so what I had to do was many a times try to find guys who would talk. And then before I even brought up the situation about taking a photograph, I would have to hear their story. I had to try to get them to tell me their story. Now, this is Mr. Andre Council. He's on the other end of the spectrum. When we're reaching out trying to find veterans to photograph, Mr. Council called me back immediately, okay? And I told Mr. Council, I said, Mr. Council, we're gonna take your portrait on the Monday, okay? Mr. Council showed up that Tuesday. Before I even ready to go, I was in St. Louis, Mr. Council was already ready to take the portrait. And I was shooting him at the church at the time, and the secretary called me, I was in St. Louis, she said, Mr. Council's here. I said, well, tell Mr. Council his appointment not till next Monday. So Mr. Council shows up the next Monday, his appointment's at 10 o'clock, Mr. Council shows up at 8. But what I did not realize about Mr. Council until later, that Mr. Council was dying. Mr. Council, in order to get to where I was taking the picture, he had to take a bus, he had to take a train and 2 buses, okay? Mr. Council never saw his portrait. He died before the exhibit.
Oh, wow.
But one thing Mr. Council told me, and a lot of other veterans told me, was that this was the first time that somebody thought what they did counted, and Mr. Council wanted a portrait showed that he did his best. So that's one of the things I was thinking about. You know, we hear all this thing about patriotism and so forth and so on, but real patriotism is when you go and you fight and you put it all on the line, even though you may not benefit from it. And if you look at most of the Black soldiers that fought in Vietnam, World War II, World War I, they really didn't get the benefits. You know, my father-in-law was a World War II guy. You know, he didn't get the benefit of the GI Bill. He didn't get the house. And so all those things, when I look at people hollering about patriotism and so forth and so on, I think, well, you know, one thing I can do, God gave me the gift of eye, that I can start photographing some of these people.
I tell you what, just taking a look at this gentleman and listening to the story that you just gave about his desires and dedication to come and be photographed and still not be around to see it because God called him home. But just taking a look at these black and white images, this really calls you to think about what these men went through, what they endured. Boy, that gentleman looks familiar.
Yeah, this is Fred.
Fred Gray?
No, Fred. I just got Fred's last name. Hold a second. Fred.
He looks very familiar.
Yeah, he died last year of COVID. He was one of my soldiers. Sorry, his name just slipped on my
Johnnie.
Fred Cleveland. This is Mr. Fred Cleveland.
Yes, that's Fred Cleveland. Yes, I know Fred.
Yeah, Fred passed last year of COVID.
Yeah, I know Fred very well.
Yeah, Fred was one of the guys that really pushed. When I said yes, he said yes. Here's another gentleman. He's from Macon. And this is Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas was the first Black man to have a radio station, have a TV show in Macon, Georgia.
That's a lot of history.
Yeah. And the banners, these are what the banners look like.
So I think you have me on there somewhere. I hadn't got a chance to get down there, but
I'm going to show you in a second. But all these men are men who served in Vietnam. And it's very, one of those things, I remember when I was a young photographer and I had the opportunity in 1992, I had to photograph one of the last remaining World War I veterans. It was an older white gentleman. He was 91 years old when I got ready to photograph. Because I was so interested in his story, he said, "Were you a veteran?" I said, "No, sir." He said, And he looked me in the eye. He said, son, I pray to God you never have to see war. Here you are, Mr. Anderson, right here. But one of the things that, when people are so quick to talk about, freedom. People are so quick to talk about freedom. But most people don't have any idea what freedom means or have any idea what it takes to keep freedom. I look at, and to me, if you don't have the freedom yourself, like these men did, many of these did before 1968, and you went over there and fought somebody else, to me, that puts another meaning on freedom in my mind, as far as in America. People have an idea of who American is. And I tell this story, and this is really gonna be the first time I'll tell the story publicly. The only time in my life I've ever felt like a man, meaning I never had to worry about color or anything, was in 2008 when I was covering the Summer Olympics in Beijing, China. I was on the Great Wall, and these people start taking pictures of me. And I looked behind me, and there was a Chinese family. And before I could say who they put their baby in my hands. They saw me, they didn't see me as a threat. They didn't see me as somebody would hurt them. They saw me as a human being. And that was the first time I walked in malls. Nobody followed me. I walked into a jewelry store. Guy was smiling. Everything was fine. And that was the first time in my life I felt that way. Now, a friend of mine said, well, they may have thought you were an athlete. I said, well, that could have been, but I saw them treat Black women the same way. Especially when we went into the village. And I had an opportunity to talk to one guy who lived in that area, who spoke English. I said, what do you think about Black people? He says, he looked at me strange. He said, what do you mean? I said, nobody's treating me bad. He said, why should you? In that area, they didn't have the images that you're killing people and so forth and so on. They just simply saw you as a human being. Now, when I got back into the Olympics, where I got around other photographers from all over the world, then you start seeing what I call that pecking order again. But when I was out and around the people, it was the best feeling ever.
Let me ask you this, Mr. Crawford. These images that you have here, have you put them in the form of a book, an electronic book, or a hardcover book yet on this particular project?
Oh yes, every book, every project, and I'm getting ready to pull this up for you now. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. This is the website, the Vietnam Black Soldiers Portrait Project. And you can go, let's see. Sorry, trying to get it. Sorry about that. Got to go back. Apologize. You can go to the Vietnam Black Soldiers Portrait Project, and there's a page where you can see the book, and you can actually purchase the book from Georgia. You can purchase postcards. You can purchase anything, because this project I'm doing on my own. I'm financing it.
Okay.
I'm pulling up right now. Sorry.
But one thing, our listeners around the world will be able to see this, and before we get off the air, they'll be able to know how to get to it online and to get what other sources that you have for us to look at.
And more importantly, just if you get a chance to go to the site, you'll not only you'll see something about me, you'll see the George exhibit, but you'll see a lot of videos about Vietnam. You'll see soldiers telling their own personal stories. Here's a unique story. The youngest person to go to fight in Vietnam was 15 years old. He went through Marine boot camp at age 14.
Wow.
He was a Black kid. And there's a video on his life and his story, what he went through. There's let's see if I can pull it real quick. There are videos about speeches that Dr. King made about Vietnam. There's everything that you want to know about what happened with Black soldiers in Vietnam. That's part of the project. I want to shoot the portraits, but I also wanted to give people an idea, as I talked about at the beginning, it's all about stories. It's all about moments. History is made up of stories. The best way to learn history is to hear the history from the people who actually were there. If you can hear their story, then you can it cuts out the middleman and it gives you a clear vision of what actually may have actually happened. Because even then you hear it from their viewpoint.
Well, I'm about to surprise you right now, because on the page that you're showing now,
yes, sir,
stories that you did not know about Vietnam.
Yes, sir.
The very first one that you have there, Black POW pilot Tony Marshall.
Yes, sir.
Is a personal friend of mine.
Well, please let him see the site.
Matter of fact, we served together in Germany.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I listened many times of his time of being a POW and being shot down in Vietnam, because he was an F-4 pilot.
Right.
From a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Academy, and he's from Washington, D.C. Know him quite well.
Well, that's great.
So I'm very, very honored to see his story, and I will call him. He lives in Apple Valley, California now. So I will definitely reach out to him and let him know about this.
And before we go, I'm pulling up this site here. If you go on to the site, you can get postcards, anything you can do to try to help me do this project. Any donation from $5 up, you get a postcard or you get a book and so forth and so on. Because I really want to be able to go to these 18 states and photograph these men, because they're dying every day.
Yes.
You know, one of the reasons one guy asked me, so why don't you do Tuskegee Airmen? That's what everybody knows about Tuskegee Airmen. Tuskegee Airmen, even though it wasn't popular back then, it was popular now. When these guys came back, first of all, anybody came back in Vietnam, you caught hell. But if you were Black, you caught triple hell. And so Vietnam was not a popular war, but the men who served were patriots. And so I decided that I need to photograph these guys because nobody else is doing it. And once they leave this earth, their stories leave with it.
It's going forever.
So I'm thank you for giving me this amount of time to talk about it.
Well, Johnnie, as you know, it's the virus kind of slowed us down, but I would like to, we'll get together offline as we had talked about, and do whatever we can to promote the project and connect our websites. I have a nonprofit, so does Anthony, and so is the radio station.
Right.
So we can put together more access, make more access available to people to learn about this project.
Well, one thing, as a good Tuskegee man supporting a good man from Morehouse, and a good Savannah State man, you got the HBCU connection here, yes, and we want to make sure that we do whatever we can. I mean, I'm so proud right now that my co-host, my frat brother Herman, is part of your book, and I'm sure that Herman has great stories, and he has shared them with us, and he shared them with our audience. So I salute my co-host. I give him a good old Army salute to my Air Force compadre over there. And I mean, I'm very, very proud to see that. Extremely proud. And I think your project is just absolutely awesome. And you can count on my nonprofit, Visually Impaired Veterans of America, making you a donation. We'll, you know, the way we roll, we're going to come in at the $100 level, and we're going to make sure that we do whatever we can to support you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Aiken. I'm gonna keep. You got my contact information, Mr. Anderson, and I'd love to have an extended conversation with you. You know, at another time. I really appreciate meeting you.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Thank y'all so much.
Well, Herman.
Yes, sir.
Listen, I got to salute you. This has just been a tremendous showing of, you know, our people in Vietnam. I mean, those photographs, and to know two of the men very personally, it's chilling, but it's a good chill.
It's a great chill. I'm trying to. I have to go back in and replay some of this stuff to figure out how I got in touch with Mr. Crawford. But things just happen.
I don't hear y'all.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear us?
Yes.
Good morning.
Yes.
Actually, we're gonna transition. Mr. Johnnie Crawford has a special project that I'll update you on. But Mr. Crawford, if you want to stay on and listen, you're welcome. Judge Dallas is one of my big supporters. She's been with me ever since I started this veteran organization.
Yes,
That's awesome.
Well, I always like learning new things. So I'll be with you. I'll go mute, so you won't hear me talk.
No problem. Well, I know she's going to come up with a great story like you did, Mr. Crawford. So please stay online with us.
God, I don't know about a great story.
Ma'am, I tell you what, you are already, in my view, like Herman, a total success.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
A total success.
Thank you.
So our audience are just waiting, like I am, to hear your story and to find out a little more about you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, start with your latest venture, where you headed in life.
Yeah, it's so interesting, man. I'm going to tell you, life just never fails to surprise. You know, when I didn't win the election in magistrate court, I just was like, okay. But I've got to say this first, and I say this every time I have an opportunity to speak, is that I totally trust God. I totally, like, to the point where all day, every day, I'm talking to God. I'm like, okay, what do I need to do now? What do I need to do now? What do I need to do now? Who do I need to help? Who do I need to serve? It's not at all about Wanda. It's not at all about the title. It's not at all about, it's never about me. And so that night that I started seeing the results, I went outside and I prayed. I had people, we were doing like a big conference, you know, like a big Zoom thing, watch the election results. And I went outside and I prayed and I was talking to God. I was like, okay, this is not what I thought it was going to be. And he just assured me that this was his plan for me all along. And once I kind of got confirmation of that, and I was calm in my spirit, I just knew that there was something else that God had me to do. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that it was. And so I started looking forward to my next. And so the last day in Clayton County was the 31st of December. The first day of my two new positions was January the 4th, the first Monday in January. I began working here. I'm at a firm in Henry County, and I'm doing criminal defense, which anyone who knows me is not surprised, because I've always had, like, even when I was a prosecutor, I've always wanted to make sure that every single decision that I was given to make was the best decision for the person, even though you can't imagine that as somebody who is in front of a prosecutor. But I needed to make the best decision for all parties involved. And that's how I look at it. And so now what I'm doing is criminal defense. I'm not really doing criminal defense. I'm kind of working things out for people who have lost their voice, perhaps, who don't know how to articulate themselves, perhaps, who need someone. I look at myself as a translator.
Well, yes, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's really how I met you, your passion for veterans, helping
Yes,
veterans.
sir.
It's, I mean, that's how we met. Is as exactly what you were saying. You're not looking to put them in jail. You're looking to figure out how you can help them.
How to help, how to serve.
And
And that's why veterans, that's why y'all are so special to me, because the epitome of service is going into the military to serve the country. That's the epitome of service, is what you do. So you'll always have my respect, my admiration, always, because I'm a servant and I recognize people that have that servant mentality. And most veterans have a servant mentality, which is, it's not about me, it's for what is good for this organization or even the country that I've been called to serve. So especially African-American men, come on, y'all are the front line, have always been on the front line, have always been the ones who held it down, even when we didn't realize that you were holding it down. You've always been that. So
I'll tell you what, man, I just feel your spirit.
yeah.
I feel your kindred spirit. And for someone that needs your particular service, and your spirit comes through where you give them, make them calm, to understand that I'm here for you.
Right.
I understand what you're dealing with, but we're going to find the best path to help you.
Yes, sir.
It's all about a path.
It is, isn't it? And people fall off the path.
Oh yeah, it's about a path.
It is about a path, isn't it? That's a beautiful way to say that, because we all have a path. And when I think about what you're saying, Anthony, Tony, your path is, how do you get to your purpose?
Exactly right.
You know,
I mean, I tell my family that, I tell my friends that path, that is your path.
Yes.
It's nobody else's path. It's yours.
That's right. That's right.
And whatever is in that path, you have to endure the best way you can.
That's right.
And whatever challenges you come against, there's always a solution to it.
Boy, isn't there? And it could be something. There it is. It could be falling off the path. That could be the solution. You know, listen, sometimes we don't see that when we're pushed or we fall or we trip off the path, that could be the plan all along. Because if you stay on the timing of, like, I even think about things like this when I'm driving sometime, I leave the house and something may distract me or stop me from leaving when I wanted to leave. Me being on a certain mindset of, I got to get out of here, I got to do this, as opposed to going with the flow on the path.
On the path.
Then that means that it could have been something that I would have ran into or could have ran into me if I wasn't taken off the path, if I wasn't distracted or detracted. So I love that, Tony. If it's okay if I call you Tony.
Oh, that's not a problem. I mean, like I said, that just from the moment you started to speak, I felt your spirit. And I felt that if someone really need to use the judge, the honorable, that's the word I like to use, the honorable, they're leading with a person that will work with you,
right? Because
she understands you have a path.
Yeah. Can I say something on that? And like, I am, wow. Like, I'm just, life to me is about understanding yourself, and it's about learning yourself. And even as old as I am now, I'm still learning things about myself. Like I'm part-time on the bench in Riverdale, Mr. Anderson. I do this part-time judge in Riverdale, right?
Right.
And so what I realize is, it's like, I've said it before, but it's confirmed to me when I went to Riverdale, is when people come to Riverdale, they come to court, my first thought is, why are you here? Not that the police officer stopped me and gave me a ticket, whatever. No. There's a reason why you're here. There's a reason why, and this goes to the path, Tony. There's a reason why in this course of your travel, you were speeding. You didn't have the right, documentation for yourself. You may have been drinking. You may have had some marijuana in your car. At this point in your life, you were stopped because there's something that you need to do. There's something that you need to redirect. There's something that you need to. So I pay attention to people. Okay, do you have your high school diploma? Have you gone to college? You know, I ask people these questions, and it's like I'll listen and I'll wait to hear what is it that I need to find out. So when they leave this court, they leave better than when they came in. And it's deeper. I've had people have said to me, I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen a judge like you. It's because I care. I care. I don't want the court to be the first worst day you had, because the first worst day you had was getting stopped by the police, and then you got to come in front of some judge who was disrespectful and demeaning. That's not. That doesn't make it better. So how do I take a situation where you're already frustrated, and how do I make this into a point where let's make this better for you? What can we do so this is better for you? Because that's my nature, that's my spirit. I'm a nurturer, and so it's always about how to make this better. How can we turn this around? You're probably gonna have to pay a fine, but because you probably didn't have your paperwork in order. You probably was, but what can we do so that this is not worse than being stopped by the police?
Correct. Yeah. So you're an advocate also.
Definitely.
You're an advocate.
Yes, sir.
I mean, gee whiz, you understand it. Herman, I'm not going to a court, but I can tell you, if I did, if I was in the honorables course, I can see, the compassion. I can feel the spirit.
Yeah.
A person that understands the path, because she has her own path. And I really enjoy the fact that she asked the questions to formulate, she's building, she's advocating for this person. Where you from? High school, elementary school.
Yeah.
Let me find out about you as a person.
Exactly.
Got you. Why are you here?
Why are you here?
Well, also, as we said earlier, as someone told me one time, you can't solve world hunger. So you have to attack things in pieces. And what Judge Dallas just went through is the way she treats everybody. But also, there are a unique group, and veterans are a unique group. So we have different backgrounds, and we've been through different stuff. So there are a lot of veteran courts in the United States. I think 150 plus.
Wow.
But, her approach to veteran courts is her philosophy as to what she just told us, which is all veteran courts don't do that. So that's
right.
What
you recall.
Sometimes if you get in one particular lane, you can help people, help that particular group of people in a special way, and that's very.
Do you recall about 5 years ago, January of that particular year, we had a show and we were talking about veterans courts, and this particular show we were talking about this veteran who was being executed.
Yeah,
and he was being executed because the judge or the people in the court system did not understand the path of this veteran on why he got to where he was. They didn't understand this person being a Vietnam era person in Vietnam who had endured battle fatigue, who had endured Agent Orange, who had endured PTSD, all of these parameters that the court system totally ignored. All they saw was this individual that we can put these statues against to get that person at that end point, then end point being execution. So now we have a judge, an honorable, who is asking the question, why are you here? And let me understand your path so I can formulate in my mind your story.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's refreshing, honorable.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
That's truly refreshing.
I appreciate that. And so I'm going to say something to you, Tony. I don't know if you started your program yet. I don't know if you have gotten stymied at the creation of the program that you're supposed to start, that you're supposed to spearhead, but you have a program. You have a program because your program is your passion for people. Your program is this ability that you have, Tony, to articulate people's problems. You're like, a person will talk to you and you can say, okay, let me tell you how we're going to sum this up. We're going to sum it up this way. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these resources in place so that when you come out the other end of this, you're more whole. And I see you at the program, and I don't know, have you found your program, if you found your platform, if you found your partners, but it's time for you to say, this is my season, because there's something that you do that's apparent to me. I see it immediately.
Well,
what
you know, yeah, I'm telling you, you got me really humbled here, because I made an announcement to Herman and others, even though I'm co-hosting with my good buddy Herman. I had the spirit of utilizing my nonprofit called Visually Impaired Veterans of America Incorporated, which was founded in 2015 because I'm a visually impaired veteran. And this crust of my new podcast is going to be, how well can you utilize your new normal? How well can you utilize your new normal?
And you know something? And you need to talk about vision. You need to talk about sight, because part of what this is how are you able to see what you see? And I think sometimes what happens is we get stuck on what we see because we want to see with our flesh. But when you start to look, when you look inside of yourself and you look inside of your psyche, your soul, you see so much more. You see people, you don't see a person as a composite of everything that they've done and the mistakes that they've made in their life, because we would all be through if that's all people saw is our mistakes. But what you're able to see, Tony, you're able to see, you're a visionary. You're a visionary with a vision, and you could see through people and you could see into people, and you quickly, that's a gift that God has given you, is your ability to discern very quickly the person, the heart of a person.
Thank you.
The soul of a person. And that's a gift. Everyone doesn't have that gift, sir. That's a gift. So it's time for you to let, what is it? The scripture says, have your gift make room for you. Have your gifting make room for you.
I like that.
Great.
I like that. I mean, it's so uplifting, because what you're saying is exactly what has been in my spirit for the last 90 days. As a matter of fact, I had a conversation with a young man. I'll give you his name. His name is Cassius Butts, who used to be the small business administrator under President Obama's administration. And he now has a podcast, and the things that he's doing, utilizing professional athletes to tell their stories to help advocate for young kids coming up. This is my path to get me where I am. Right. Charles Barkley and all the others. Mine is a visually impaired veteran who, like me, at age 20, when I went into Fort Benning, Georgia, had one sheet of paper that says, you are good to go.
Wow.
But when I retired, I had a medical packet of almost 18 inches.
Wow.
So I served, as our previous guest said, Mr. Crawford, freedom is not free. It's not free. We all pay a price. Herman paid a price. I paid a price. So now my price is my new normal. And I want to share back to those veterans, male and female, who are there and who are experiencing things, and they're stuck.
Boy, stuck on that path, huh?
They're stuck. They can't move.
No,
but
it's not even that it's not that they can't move. Sometimes fear immobilizes.
That's the word, fear.
Yeah.
They're afraid of that new normal.
Yeah.
And that new normal opens up so many different things that you didn't see before.
Right.
You didn't see it. But now you're listening to that inner self, as you said before, that inner peace. You use your hands as though they're your eyes. It's amazing to me what you could do when you thought you couldn't do it.
That's right.
I still try and play golf. I still work out. My friends still come by and take me, and I can hit a golf ball 280 yards. I may not see it. They see it. And they say, well, how do you do that? I said, it's not but God.
Mm.
He has slowed me down, and I'm playing better than you guys. That's my path.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying that path. So how do you deal with that new normal? I still cook. You know what I mean? So
yes.
Go to my website. It's Visually Impaired Veterans of America. And you'll see a site that is filled with stories and information to empower those individuals who are stuck.
Mm.
You can move forward.
Amen.
Well,
Can I say something to Mr. Crawford?
Yes.
Sure.
Mr. Crawford, one of the things, and I see this gift in people sometime, but I don't know if I see it with the intensity that I can see this in you. One of your giftings is words, and you have books. I don't know if you've written any books yet. I don't know if you've written any brochures. I don't know what you've written, pamphlets.
Yeah.
What you've got to do this next time is you got to get some type of recording and start to speak about what it is. There's something that's deep inside of you that it's time for you to let it out. It's time for you to share it. It's almost like this thing that you've suppressed. You've pushed it down and pushed it down, but it's going to give you a freedom when you let it go. And you're not going to be able to write words on paper. You're going to have to let it out through your voice. You're going to have to find some kind of recording device or something where whatever this is that's deep inside of you that causes you to wake up in the middle of the night. You wake up in a sweat. I see you waking up in the middle of the night in a sweat from this. And you gotta dig down in yourself, and it's time for you to understand what this is. And the only way to move forward is to let it out. And you'd be surprised that what you're going through right now is going to help to save other people, men and women.
It's amazing you said that about that, because I'm a kidney transplant and had a kidney transplant for 27 years. And actually coming out in April, I did another huge exhibit in Macon that's featuring Blacks who had transplants and trying to get Black folks to donate organs and so forth and so on. I'll pass the link on to you guys if you're interested when we have the Zoom meeting. But one of the things that I talked to before you got on was that I am a big lover of history, and not only just history, but history from the standpoint of personal stories.
Right.
And I was, when I was teaching at Mercer, one of the things that I would do, it's interesting to hear you say that about just how you figure out what people would do. When every student that I ever taught in any class, the first thing they had to do was write me an essay on themselves, because I need to know who I was talking to. Because if I know who I'm talking to, 9 times out of 10, I have an experience. I know somebody who's had an experience that can talk, that I can help them. And one of the things that I've always wanted to do is I love talking to young people. I was a scout leader. When I was at the paper, when I worked at the Journal-Constitution, I didn't care too much about taking the portraits or taking the pictures. I love talking to the people.
Yes.
I learned, and I'm so glad you said that, because I was thinking about this the other day, is that what I need to do in order for me to get where I came from, because both of my parents died when I was small. My mother died of kidney disease, and I got a kidney. My father was paralyzed from the neck down. He died at 25. So I enjoyed talking to kids who, don't have parents, and tell them how you have to maneuver through all these different, we all got different I'm not gonna say different lives, but we all got different faces that we show, and how you have to put those faces in order to make it through your path. You know, I went from a school with all Blacks, then we integrated, then I go to Morehouse, then I go to Ohio University, then I work at the Journal-Constitution. But you know, you had put all these different faces to keep you on the path so you don't get. But I thank you for those words. I just wrote down what you said, that how I stole it from what you were talking, Mr. Aiken. I wrote down for myself that you said that you have the gift of discernment. And I've always been able to see the good in people, no matter how bad they are. You know, and just a quick story, just get out. I remember, since you're a judge, I had to photograph back in DeKalb County, this guy, Larry Longshire. He was such an evil person that he killed the lady who was calling 911, and I had to photograph him. And he looked at me as they were taking him out the courtroom. Had these two big Black deputies. Says, "When I get out of the jail, you're gonna be the first one I'm going to kill."
He said that to you?
Said that to me. And I watched that guy in the back of my mind for the next 20 years. I paid attention to what
I know what you're saying.
Until he got the needle. It was in the back of my mind. But I remember looking at this guy, and I remembered something that my grandmother said, that my grandmother said, before I heard Maya Angelou, said, people tell you who they are, but you just refuse to believe them.
There it is. Boy, oh boy, oh boy.
And one thing I learned from my grandparents and my grandmother, my grandfather, my grandfather, is really look and see who these people are, and realize that there's sometimes you have to do like the Bible said, dust the dirt up, the dust under your feet, and go.
And keep on going. And
so one of the things when I talk to young people, I always tell them, you know, you got to be able to see this. Some people you can talk to, some you can't. You can't fight you can't fight all the time. So you have to pick your battles. But I don't take up your time, Judge, but I really
Mr. Crawford,
we got to wrap this up. That's
Herman, just before Herman, just before we go, I need to ask Mr. Crawford this. Mr. Crawford, I need you to take down this name.
Okay.
His name is Jerome Aiken. That's my brother. Like you, a kidney transplant survivor.
Okay.
Please, I want to make sure you get in touch with him because he has a very unique story.
Okay.
Wow.
He has an unbelievable story of how his path changed when he was given a kidney by a person that heard his testimony in church.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's 10 years now.
What we're gonna do is I'm not gonna let this die. So I'm outside of this show and this program, we all have different organizations that we're dealing with. So I'm gonna contact Judge Dallas, Johnnie, and Anthony called me early in the morning anyway. So
y'all keep in touch.
Oh my! Well, all the time.
So we're gonna set up a planning meeting about this.
Great.
You okay with that?
Awesome.
You okay with that, Judge?
I am.
That is awesome.
I just sent you my number, Judge.
In the chat. Okay, cool. Let me get that.
Make sure you send it to me also.
Okay, I'm doing it now.
And Honorable, I have to get you on my podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well,
yes. And Mr. Crawford.
Thank Mr. Crawford and thank Judge Dallas, my special person.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Judge.
On the program
Thank y'all. It's nice meeting y'all.
Yeah, nice meeting you too.
Yes.
We are out of time, and we had a wonderful conversation. I hope our listeners enjoyed, and we'll do this again soon. So everybody have a good Friday.
It's nice meeting y'all. Thank y'all so much. Thank you.